Sometimes the loudest message you'll ever send is the one wrapped in silence. You've explained, begged, and argued, yet nothing changes. But the moment you stop speaking, the balance shifts. Suddenly your absence becomes louder than your presence. This isn't weakness, it's power. The Stoics knew that silence disarms toxic people and rebuilds inner strength. Today, you'll discover why silence makes you untouchable. Part number 1, the trap of overgiving, detailed. At first, it feels natural to give. You show love by reaching out first, by checking in, by making an effort. You offer your time, your energy, your attention, because you believe this is how relationships grow. You believe consistency will be appreciated, that effort will be rewarded, and for a while, you convince yourself it is working. They replied, didn't they? They smiled, didn't they? So you keep giving, but then you notice something subtle. The more you pour in, the less it seems to matter. You send a long message, they reply with one word. You check in every day, they go days without thinking of you. You invest deeply, they invest lightly. At first you excuse it. Maybe they're busy. Maybe you're asking too much. Maybe you need to try harder. But slowly the truth becomes impossible to ignore. You're not in balance. You're carrying the weight of the connection alone. The Stoics warned us about this trap centuries ago. Epictetus said, "When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger." What he meant was this: most of the suffering we feel doesn't come from the other person. It comes from our own expectations, our own belief that if we just try harder, things will change. We suffer because we attach our worth to someone else's response. And this is the silent poison of overgiving. You give, not because it's your nature, but because you're afraid of what happens if you stop. You explain, not because they don't understand, but because you fear being misunderstood. You chase, not because you enjoy it, but because you're terrified of what their silence might mean. But here's the truth the Stoics want us to face. Effort without reciprocity is not love. It's not friendship. It's not connection. It's dependence disguised as devotion. Seneca put it bluntly, "He who is brave is free." And the opposite is also true. He who cannot stop chasing is a slave. Not to the other person, but to his own fear of being unseen. Think of it like this. Every time you chase someone who doesn't meet you halfway, you're whispering to them, "You are above me. I need you more than you need me." And human nature responds predictably. What costs nothing is valued as nothing. What is always available is easily ignored. This is why the more you explain, the less they listen. The more you show up, the less they show up. It isn't because you're unworthy. It's because human beings are wired to take for granted what they believe will always be there. The Stoics would tell you this: your worth is not proven by effort. Your worth is not a negotiation. Your worth simply is, and until you see that, you'll keep falling into the same trap, trying to buy respect with effort, trying to earn love with sacrifice, trying to prove value through chasing. But here's the shift. The moment you stop overgiving, the moment you step back and allow silence to speak, you begin to reclaim yourself. Because silence doesn't just create space in the relationship, it creates space inside you. Space to see the truth. Space to rebuild your dignity. Space to realize that real connection never requires chasing. This is the first step of Stoic strength, refusing to pour your energy into people who treat it like water. Part number 2. Why silence shakes. People's silence is often mistaken for weakness. People think, if you don't react, if you don't argue, if you don't explain yourself endlessly, it must mean you have nothing to say. But the truth is the opposite. Silence, when chosen, is not emptiness, it's power. Think about it. When you finally stop talking, when you withdraw your energy, something strange happens. The very silence they once ignored begins to echo louder than your words ever did. Why? Because human beings don't notice consistency. They notice absence. A flame burning every night is taken for granted, but the night it goes out, everyone feels the darkness. A voice always explaining is tuned out, but when that voice vanishes, suddenly people listen for it. A presence always chasing becomes background noise, but when that presence is gone, its absence is deafening. This is why silence shakes people. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In other words, the strongest response is often no response at all. Not anger, not insults, not shouting, simply refusing to play the game. Toxic people thrive on reactions. They want you to explain, to defend, to prove, to beg. They live off your energy because it confirms their importance. But when you respond with silence, you deny them their fuel. Suddenly, they're left alone with something they can't control, their own thoughts. And here's the secret: most people cannot handle their own thoughts. They don't want to face their guilt, their insecurities, their selfishness. Your silence forces them to. It becomes a mirror they can't look away from. Seneca once said, "He suffers more than is necessary, who suffers before it is necessary." This is exactly what silence does. In the void you create, their imagination begins to torment them. Why aren't you replying? Did you finally give up on them? Did they lose the control they once had? Notice you didn't punish them. You didn't curse them. You simply stepped back. And in that space, their own mind becomes the punishment. But here's something even more important. Your silence is not about them at all. It is not revenge. It is not manipulation. It is clarity. It is a way of saying, I will no longer waste my breath where my words are not valued. The Stoics remind us that discipline is not just about controlling your actions. It's about controlling your reactions. And silence is the ultimate disciplined reaction. It is choosing to rise above instead of getting pulled down. Think of a storm. You don't argue with the thunder. You don't shout back at the rain. You simply close your door and stay dry. That is what silence does with toxic people. It refuses to fight storms it cannot control, and that is why silence shakes them. Not because it's aggressive, but because it's unshakable. People can prepare for anger, they can prepare for arguments, but they can never prepare for calm withdrawal. Silence disarms them because it is unpredictable. It takes away the script they thought they controlled, and in that quiet the power shifts from them back to you. Part number 3, the inner battle of staying silent. Staying silent may sound simple, just keep your mouth closed, right? But anyone who has tried it in the heat of conflict knows the truth. Silence is one of the hardest disciplines to master. Why? Because the human heart craves to defend itself. When someone insults you, your pride demands you fire back. When someone spreads lies about you, your ego screams for you to set the record straight. When someone disrespects you, every part of you wants to shout, "That's not who I am." And yet the Stoics would remind us that silence in such moments is not weakness, it is wisdom. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." What does this mean? It means that when you stay silent, you're not suppressing yourself, you're mastering yourself. You're refusing to give someone else the power to dictate your peace of mind. But make no mistake, the inner battle is real. Silence burns. It feels heavy in the chest. Your tongue feels like fire, wanting to lash out. Your mind races with all the clever comebacks you could deliver. And yet, the more you resist, the stronger you become. This is where silence transforms into strength. Because silence is not passive, it is an active choice. Every second you remain silent when your ego wants to explode, you are training your inner discipline. Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Silence is the purest form of this teaching. You cannot control their words, their lies, their disrespect, but you can control your response. And here's the beauty of it. Silence always reveals who truly has control. If you argue, they win. If you defend, they win. If you stay calm and quiet, they face themselves, and you win without lifting a finger. But let's be honest, it hurts not to defend yourself. It feels unfair to let people believe lies. And here's where Stoicism gives us the ultimate reminder. What others think of you is not your business. What is your business? Your character, your actions, your inner peace. When you learn to tell yourself, I know the truth, and the truth needs no defense, you step into a freedom most people never taste. Remember the words of Seneca. It is a great thing to know the season for speech and the season for silence. Silence is not permanent. It is not about never speaking. It is about choosing when to speak and when not to. The inner battle of silence is this. Can you hold yourself when your emotions are begging you to explode? Can you value your peace more than your pride? Can you let go of winning the small argument in order to win the greater war, the war within yourself? Think of it like this. When you respond with silence, you are not surrendering. You are simply stepping out of the battlefield, refusing to fight on their terms. You are choosing a higher ground. And from that higher ground, you see things clearly. Over time, this practice transforms you. You become less reactive, less disturbed, less drained by people's words. You begin to notice a deep calm rising within you. And that calm is what makes you unshakable. So yes, silence is hard. It feels unnatural at first. But every time you win that inner battle, every time you refuse to waste your breath, you grow stronger, steadier, more resilient, and one day you'll look back and realize the silence that once burned in your chest has become the fire that now lights your path. Part number 4. How silence builds. Respect and authority. Here's a paradox you've probably noticed in life. The people who talk the most are often taken the least seriously. But those who speak less, those who choose their words carefully, those who let silence do the heavy lifting, are often the ones everyone listens to. Why? Because silence builds respect. Silence creates authority. Think of the leaders you've admired, whether in history or in your personal life. Were they the ones shouting every opinion, arguing with everyone, constantly explaining themselves? Or were they the ones who spoke rarely, but when they did, every word mattered? Silence has weight. It creates space. It forces others to lean in, to pay attention. And this is exactly what the Stoics understood. You don't need to raise your voice to raise your influence. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, ruled the most powerful empire in the world, yet his writings are filled not with boasts, but with quiet reflections. He knew that true authority is not in being heard the most, but in being listened to when it matters. Now let's bring this into the modern world. Imagine you're in a meeting at work. Everyone is arguing, throwing out ideas, talking over one another. One person, however, remains silent, listening carefully. Then at the right moment, they speak just a few words. Suddenly the room goes quiet. Why? Because their silence before speaking gave their words power. This is what silence does. It trains others not to expect noise from you, but substance. And when people learn that you don't waste words, they start valuing your voice, but there's more. Silence also protects your reputation. Foolish people often reveal their ignorance by speaking too quickly, too emotionally, or too often. The Stoic philosopher Zeno once said, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue. One careless word can destroy trust." While silence never has to be taken back, here's the deeper truth. Silence is not just about withholding speech. It's about signaling strength. When you don't rush to defend yourself, when you don't argue endlessly, when you don't need constant validation, people recognize that you are grounded. You are not desperate for approval. And that kind of self-possession is magnetic. Have you noticed that when someone stays calm and quiet in an argument, the other person often grows more frustrated, even desperate? Why? Because silence shifts the power dynamic. Words are predictable, but silence is unsettling. It shows that you are not controlled by impulse. You are not pulled into emotional games. Seneca put it beautifully, "It is better to conquer grief than to deceive it." Applied here, it means it's better to master your reactions in silence than to hide your weakness behind a flood of words. This principle doesn't just apply in conflict. It applies in everyday life, in relationships. Silence during anger prevents words you'll regret. In business, Silence during negotiation forces the other side to reveal more. In friendships, silence during gossip shows your loyalty and maturity. Every time you choose silence wisely, you rise higher in the eyes of others. And here's the most powerful part. Silence also builds respect for yourself. When you practice it, you start realizing that you don't need to rush into every debate. You don't need to prove yourself to everyone. You don't need to explain your worth. Your confidence grows, not because of what you say, but because of what you no longer feel the need to say. This is the authority silence builds, an authority rooted not in fear, but in self-control. People may not always like you for it, but they will respect you. And in Stoic philosophy, respect grounded in virtue is far greater than popularity built on noise. So remember this. Foolish people waste their strength trying to be heard everywhere. Wise people conserve their strength and speak only where it matters. And in the end, the silent ones often shape the loudest legacies. Part number 5, turning silence into a daily Stoic habit. Silence is not a one-time act. It's a discipline you cultivate until it becomes part of who you are. The Stoics never saw philosophy as theory. It was a way of living. And silence, when practiced daily, can reshape the way you move through the world. Begin your mornings with a few quiet minutes of reflection before the noise of the day takes over. Ask yourself what kind of person you want to be today. In conversations, resist the urge to react instantly. A brief pause often carries more wisdom than a rushed reply. Silence can also serve as a shield. When others drag you toward gossip, conflict, or negativity, your refusal to engage is louder than any words you could say. Protect your energy by choosing when to speak and when to remain still. Make space for intentional noise fasts. Step away from music, chatter, and screens for a while. In that stillness, clarity emerges. And at night, close your day in silence with reflection or journaling, a way to see yourself honestly, without distraction. Living in silence doesn't mean withdrawing from life. It means letting your actions speak louder than explanations. True strength is not found in proving yourself with words, but in embodying your values without needing to announce them. Silence, when practiced this way, becomes more than the absence of sound. It becomes a presence, calm, steady, unshakable. In a world that constantly demands your voice, your opinion, your reaction, choosing silence is a radical act of strength. The Stoics understood that silence isn't weakness, it's power. It protects your peace, sharpens your focus, and commands respect without noise. When you stay silent, you are no longer controlled by others, you control yourself. And that is the foundation of true freedom. Remember, silence doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the most important thing, mastering yourself. Let your actions speak, let your discipline shine, and let your calmness unsettle the chaos around you. If this message resonated with you, don't let it end here. Carry it forward. Practice silence today, even in one small moment, and notice how your power grows. If you found value in this Stoic wisdom, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs this reminder. Together, we can bring ancient wisdom into modern life and build calmer, stronger, and unshakable minds.